everyone, it's Kate Kalthoff and welcome to a Stamping to Share video. Thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to use the Nature's Poem product suite from Stampin' Up in the 2018-19 Stampin' Up catalog to create a gorgeous Thinking of You card. I cannot hardly wait to share it with you. I've actually made it quite a long time ago, and it just took a little while before I got around to making the video, but here it is. Today is the day. Let me show you the card we're making. It looks just like this, and it is so gorgeous. I know you're going to love it. I know you're going to want to copy it because I actually copied it from the catalog. So if you look at the catalog, you will see there's lots of great ideas to case in the catalog, but I changed a few things, just like I'm sure that you will too. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll swing the camera down and we'll get going. All right, as you can see, I have the Stampin' Up catalog open to page 142, and this is the card we're going to recreate. And I did change up the colors, and I just changed it up a little bit to make it more me. I apologize for my little wound here. I was carrying a load of laundry through my house and just banged my hand really hard into the door jamb and actually was bleeding rather profusely. So I had to quick put some lavender oil on it, and then I covered it up with some colorful Band-Aids left over from when my kids were little. Hopefully it won't be too big of a distraction here. But as I was mentioning, this is the Nature's Poem product suite. And it includes this gorgeous stamp set and then a coordinating set of framelit dies. So let me show you that. It's actually a 2-case stamp set, and it looks like this. It's a great companion set to Lovely as a Tree. And I love it. It's great. I think it'll work really well for my Minnesota sentiments because we live in a state that has lots of pine trees, lots of lakes, lots of cabins. So I just look at this as about the most perfect stamp set next to Lily Pad Lake, which is also one of my very favorite stamp sets in the catalog. And then of course here is the Framelits. And so we're missing one because I have it on the Big Shot machine, but these look just like this. So let's go ahead and get started. Here is the card because you probably need another peek at this. And when you open it up, it says Thinking of You. It's so pretty. So the first thing that we're going to need is our card base. This is Tranquil Tide, 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored at 5 1/2. And I'm just going to fold this in half, and then I'll use my bone folder to give it a nice press. The next thing we have is our inside panel. This is 4 by 5 1/4, and it's Whisper White. And I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to put some snail here, and we'll put that on the inside panel of my card. This is a 1/2 inch by 4 inch piece of the Designer Series paper. That is called Nature's Poem. So let me put this down into the inside panel of the card, and then I'll grab that paper and show you what that looks like. Here is the Nature's Poem Designer Series paper, and you can see it's got some beautiful colors in, including Tranquil Tide, which I'm highlighting on my card today. And as we flip through, you can see there is just a beautiful, beautiful array of papers featuring leaves and foliage and some gorgeous textures and some wood backgrounds. And it is beautiful. And this is the paper that we're featuring, kind of this crumb cake with Tranquil Tide, which is just a gorgeous, gorgeous color combination. And so this is the inside panel, and now we need to stamp some leaves. To do that, I just have a piece of scrap paper. This is Whisper White. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in my Crumb Cake ink pad, and then also my Tranquil Tide ink pad. And I am going to get the leaf stamp, which looks like this, and I just have it on a clear block. And the first thing that I want to do is just take the Crumb Cake ink pad and just put a layer of crumb cake ink on this stamp. Then I'm going to take the Tranquil Tide, and we're going to do something that's called the rock and roll technique, where you just touch the very edges of the leaves with the Tranquil Tide. And then you can flip that down and just stamp that directly onto your Whisper White scrap, and you have a beautiful leaf that is two-toned, and it's just gorgeous. So what I did is I did work this a little bit here in advance, so you wouldn't have to watch me do all of the leaves, because we're going to need 3 sets of leaves for this card. And what I did is, once I had my leaves stamped, I used my magnetic platform, a cut plate, and then of course I have my paper, my die, and another cut plate over the top. And when you take this out, you have a perfectly cut out trio of leaves. And so we're just going to take this and we are going to put it into the inside panel of our card. So I'm just going to use a little bit of snail here. Just add a little bit of snail to these leaves, and then I'm going to tuck it underneath that half-inch strip of Designer Series paper. So then I can go ahead, press that down, and now we'll do our Thinking of You. So I have that on a clear block, and we're going to take Tranquil Tide, just ink that up, and then we'll stamp this right here in the middle, and our inside panel is done, and it's just beautiful. So now let's go ahead and work on the outside panel. So we are going to need another piece of Tranquil Tide cardstock. This is cut at 4 by 5 1/4. And then I also have prepared another piece of that Designer Series paper. This is 2 by 5 1/4. Well, actually, it's actually 2 by 5 1/2 because I'm going to trim it even. But we can take this and we'll just use some multi-purpose liquid glue, and we're just gonna set some glue, about right here. Then we'll take our 2 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock or of Designer Series paper, lay that down, press it into place, and the glue of course gives me some wiggle room to make sure that I have it exactly where I want it. And I want it so that it's maybe, just over a half, well, probably about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom here. In fact, I'll just measure it. And yes, it's actually just a little over a ½ inch from the bottom. There we go. Then we can go ahead, flip this around, and you will be able to trim this evenly with the edge of your cardstock panel. I like doing that because sometimes, it's always difficult to cut it exactly even every single time. And so sometimes I just cut it a little bit longer and trim it even. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some Crumb Cake Classic Weave ribbon, and I'm just going to set this out here, and we will grab my ribbon scissors here and just trim this so that we have it sticking out a little bit longer on each side of the paper. Then I can go ahead and wrap this around, and I'll secure it with Scotch tape. Now, as you can see, this ribbon is actually dead center in the middle of this 2 by 5 1/4 inch strip of Designer Series paper. So the very next thing that we want to do is just grab a scrap of Crumb Cake paper, and then we're going to take our sentiment, which is Words Are Never Enough, and we're going to ink it up with Soft Suede. So let me do that right now. We're just gonna do one stamp here. Words are never enough. It's lovely, but I want to break that up and put it onto my card separately. So we're just going to cut directly in the middle here between R and never, and then we're going to just free cut these words out. So here's the words are, and then we need never enough. So again, I'm just freehand cutting. In fact, you see a lot of that now. It's kind of a trend with stamping. So there we go. So the words are never enough. And I don't want it too wide of a border here, so I'm just gonna trim this up a little bit closer. There we go. And you don't want these to look perfect. You want it to have sort of this kind of handmade look. So I have my words ready, but we're going to put those on last. I just wanted to get them ready for you. The next thing we need is another piece of scrap Whisper Right, and we're going to run it through the Big Shot machine, which I already did, with our stitched shape framelits. And so I used the very largest circle of our stitched shape framelits and cut this out. And what we're going to do next is stamp our tree onto this. And so again, I have my Tranquil Tide. We're going to ink up this really large, awesome tree, and we're going to stamp it. Actually, you know what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my crumb cake and I'm going to put a little bit of ground here. I just don't like the look of a tree floating around in outer space, so I've got my sponge and I'm inking it up with some crumb cake, and I'm just going to go like this along the bottom of my circle. And that gives my tree some ground so it doesn't look like it's floating into outer space. So then I will take my tree that's already been inked up with the Tranquil Tide, and I'm just going to set it right here so that it is on the ground, and give that a nice press. Lift it away, and there we have it. And look at how gorgeous that is. Isn't it beautiful? So this is ready to go. So what we want to do next is put this onto our card. And right now it's kind of wet, but I'm going to go ahead and work with it anyway. But just be careful when you're working with something that's just been inked to give it a little time to dry. So I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to put some dimensionals on. All right, as you can see, I put 3 dimensionals onto this circle, and now we're just going to set it here right like this, and that looks good. Then give it a press so all of your dimensionals are attached, and then we can go ahead and we can put Words Are Never Enough onto our card. So we're going to do that with some glue. So I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of glue. I have a lot of control here. If you use just a little bit, and that's the first one. And now we'll do the second one and set that right here. And again, with glue, it's kind of nice because you get that little chance to kind of wiggle that around and get it just where you want it. And that looks good. Now what we have to do is add some leaves, and so you saw that I had a few extras cut out, so here they are, and I am just going to put them on with dimensionals as well. All right, so the first leaf that we're putting on has 3 dimensionals because we're going to attach all 3 leaves. So we're just going to set this in, oh, I don't know, about right here. And all 3 leaves are popped up, and it looks great. Now the second set of leaves that we're going to put on, I only put a dimensional on the 2 largest leaves. I'm using our mini dimensionals because this leaf is going to go over the top, so it really doesn't need a dimensional. So just set that right in like this, and that looks great. Now the final finishing touch is to take a True Gentleman button and put a few, I think I did about 4 glue dots on it, and also be sure you tie a little bit of linen thread on there. I just put it into a bow, and once you have that all prepared, then you can go ahead and set this right here about where your leaves are meeting here with the edge of your stitched shape framelit image. So we'll just give that a little press, set that in, and the front panel of our card is complete, and it's so pretty. So now all we have to do is add it to the front of our card. So to do that, we're just going to take some multi-purpose liquid glue, run a big square around, and then we'll set this on here, wiggle it into place so all of our borders are nice and even, and our card is complete. Look at how gorgeous that is. So here is the card we've just done. Here's the card I had done in advance. So thank you so much for being a part of my Stamping to Share community. I truly appreciate you. If you'd like to place a product order, be sure to visit my blog at www.stampingtoshare.com, and I have links there that will take you right to my online store. Have a great day. Bye-bye.